Hi, everybody. Thanks to the network for having me. Thanks to all of you, of course. And I want to mention a couple of you in particular. Sarah Bradley, thanks for reaching out a few weeks ago to invite me to this. And thanks to Kelly Withicombe for getting this talk on tape or file or whatever you want to say these days. So thanks, Kelly. So to begin with, the phrase of the day, is everyone a physicist? Yeah, I think so. You don't want an English major running the cyclotron, at least not without a lesson, but we're talking about something a little less specific here. Everyone's a physicist. Now, what that means to me is something I know you've thought about. Every human assesses the world looking for patterns because this is how we navigate the world. First, recognizing patterns reinforces what we know that already works, from how to conduct a relationship to how to navigate the sidewalk. Second, searching for patterns shows us anomalies as well, and that in turn tells us when our assumptions are wrong, pushes us to adjust our approach, our models, our expectations, our behavior. In other words, life is nothing but a big fancy feedback loop, and we're learning all the time. But that's what physicists do. We're kind of like professional learners. We're constantly engaged. We observe, we compare results to expectations, and we revise models accordingly. So in that sense, yes, everyone is a physicist, whether they know it or not, but not everyone's a teacher. That's what you do, as I understand your days. And today I'm going to describe something that can make teaching more effective. Now, to go back to this description of the event, the description of today's session includes this phrase, that we'll be exploring how early curiosity about the physical world can be maintained throughout formal education. That's a mouthful, okay. But let's dig in. If you're on a bicycle traveling from point to point, you don't just push off hard and then coast to the destination. Every turn of the wheel, every push on those pedals moves you forward. You're pushing yourself as you go. So in a sense, every step on that pedal is both a continuation and a fresh beginning, all right? Now, I have an idea for you, the way you can create that momentum for students in a classroom. If we treat every course as one more push on the pedal, we can propagate interest throughout the entire journey across any topic, whether it's physics or pretty much anything else. With that in mind, I'm going to tell you what I've found to be the spectacular power of early mastery. That's what I want to talk about, the power of early mastery. First, I'm going to tell you how it works in my own classroom, and then I'm going to tell you from a neuroscientific perspective why it works that way. Now, you may already be a big believer in the power of early mastery, and if you are, that's great. But the neurochemistry behind it is something that most of you have not heard. It's a process driven by the neurotransmitter, or the brain chemical, called dopamine, 5-HT, and I talk about it in a book I co-wrote called The Molecule of More, and I hope you'll check that out. So first, how early mastery works in practice. I was trained as a physicist, but today I teach writing of all things at Georgetown University in the graduate program in public relations when I'm not writing myself. The first thing I teach students is not theory, not principle, but a foundational practical skill: how to write a news release. Stick with me. I give them a template, and I tell them to write to the template, paragraph by paragraph, and in some cases, sentence by sentence and phrase by phrase. Now, if any of you write for a living or writing is a part of what you do, you know that filling in a template is no way to write for very long. It won't carry you too far. But I submit it is a way to learn, and maybe the best way. This template I give them is ridiculously easy to follow, okay? They don't have to think much about it. They just write. I mean, physically, literally write. And that's my intention. While they are achieving the literal writing of the document, the press release in this case, I explain to them why they're doing what they're doing. For each part, I show them what problem is being solved and then how it's solved by their choices in the template of content, structure, and style. And I've already made it sound more complicated than it is. Let me take you through an example. We write a headline with this model in mind, the client's name first and the action verb behind it, it states what the piece is about. For instance, this headline, Netflix to stream Seinfeld this fall, which I understand is true, by the way. Well, why phrase it that way? Client's name plus action verb. So they're writing this down. Well, remember, I tell them that first we want to know the problem to be solved, and then I want to tell you why we're solving it. So problem one, a client wants to see their name in print. The solution, put their name in print. Netflix. There you go. First word, bam, Netflix. Problem two, because they don't know the problems or the solution, remember. A reporter needs to know immediately whether this release is something they cover already. The solution, tell them what it is so they can figure that out. Put it in the headline. And if you use an action verb, you ensure it's something the client's doing and not just some boast they're making about we're cool or we have a bunch of new products or something like that. It's actually something they're doing, which is the essence of news. Now, I know you guys aren't public relations writers. I'm not trying to teach you how to do PR writing. I'm leading to the idea of pushing the learning forward through this. Hang on. Now, they can write a basic headline at this point, and it took 30 seconds to teach them to do that. So since we have a little bit of class time left in this class after 30 seconds, I tell them a little more. I tell them things like this. I tell them to avoid writing a mystery, like guess what's coming to Netflix? That'd be a dumb way to write a press release. If I go to the store for beans and the can says, you'll never guess what's in here, you're right. I'll never guess. I'm going to buy the can that says beans on the label, leave you two alone. I'm not going to play Where's Waldo with the groceries. I have things to do. Reporters don't want to be amused. They want to be informed. So at this point, the student has written a document, or at least they've written a headline. They get this early mastery of a simple skill, and they're moving along. They filled in a template, and they've gotten the pleasure of learning something new that they can absolutely immediately apply. They know why they did it that way too. They really have learned something. Now, are there other ways to write a press release? Of course, but that's not the point. If you learn to drive a car, doesn't mean you're ready to go race at the Indianapolis 500. But you can, at that point, do about 99% of what you need to do with a car. And you're equipped to learn more. And if you have a desire for more, if you have a need for more, you probably now have the motivation to learn more. And that's my big point. You're not only equipped to learn more, you are motivated to do so by the early success, the pleasure of early success, which is where the neuroscience comes in, but we'll get to that. In my case, at the end of the first class, about 2 hours long, these students walk out with a skill they did not have 120 minutes before, and they can take it to use it at work the next morning and make money. Now, that's a satisfying feeling for anybody, but especially for a student who, in my opinion, has to spend a lot of time listening to self-indulgence from professors who would rather talk about the theory in their own work than point their attention toward equipping students with the things they need. In my dozen years in front of college classrooms, graduate school classrooms, this is a rare experience for most of them. I hope I give it to them. You know what? From then on, at that point, I've taught them something useful. They're mine, completely mine. I use this technique for document writing all the way up to op-eds and speeches, complicated things. You can use it for whatever you teach, though, and it certainly doesn't have to be writing. I used to say it's a simple proposition, but now I say it's a simple fact. When someone acquires even a little mastery, it makes them want to learn more. Early success is transformative. It adds to the often shallow reservoirs of patience and enthusiasm, because those things run dry when we have to listen and we don't want to. And that brings me to the second part of this. Why early mastery works so well as a motivator, not just because we see it works well, but what's going on behind it. And let's bring in a little neuroscience, but first, the context. Stick with me. As living creatures, pretty far up the ladder, our consciousness divides the world into two categories: things we want and things we have. Things we want, things we desire, and things we have. Now, the thing about what we already have, we tend to get bored with it. Sometimes it takes seconds, sometimes it takes years. But once we know our way around something, once the mystery is gone, we're pretty much done with it. That's why the things we have gather dust. But the other category, the things we want, Could be something physical like a new car, or something you can't get your arms around, like a career or an achievement or an opportunity or a relationship. Those things require pursuit. They require planning. They require creativity. And what it takes to figure out how to do it is a source of endless fascination. Of course, then we acquire the skill or the job or the career or the achievement, and the thrill of pursuit is over. This thing that we don't have jumps into the category of the things we do have, and we either learn to appreciate what we possess, we begin to savor it or meditate upon it, or we get bored with it and we bail on it. Like that time you were going to learn to sail, or that time you were going to join the gym. Think about how long some of those things last. Once the mystery's gone, got a problem. Here's the thing, the feeling of anticipation of the not completely known is far more compelling than appreciating what we already possess. Think about a kid at Christmas. This is my favorite example. They're desperate to open the present and see what's inside, but 20 minutes after that, what are they doing? They're playing with the box, right? They're playing with the box it came in. Whatever's behind that wrapping paper while it's sitting under the tree, that could be anything. The mystery has yet to be solved. Open the box, mystery over. And most of the time, the mystery is more fun than whatever's in the box. But that box, that's a vehicle for imagination. As I said, 20 minutes after they open the toy, they're having an adventure with the box because the box could be anything. And here is where the neurochemistry comes in. The elements of survival, food, shelter, a partner for procreation. We don't find those things, the things we need to survive, by admiring what's already under our control, the things we have. We must instead go out into the unknown and look for them. Our brain, therefore, gives us pleasure at what I call the promising unknown. That's the phrase, the promising unknown, which makes us crave the unknown, which gets us out there to find more stuff for survival. Doesn't matter if we already have what we need. The brain's a crude instrument in this way. When you encounter some promising unknown, the brain fires off a chemical called dopamine. And it gives you a good feeling, among the most attractive and motivating feelings you can have. It's so intense that whatever it was in your life that caused you to feel dopamine, now they're associated, now they're linked, and you're going to go after more. This is the source of addiction, by the way. This is why my co-author and I call this the molecule of more. It's the ultimate motivator. Now, if you're a caveman having this, or a cave woman for that matter, this little process is going to keep you alive. It's pushing you relentlessly into the promising unknown to find those things you need to live. But in the 21st century, this perpetual desire for the new can pose problems of the most intractable kind. And it can create distortions in the path between you and what you think will make you happy. For better and worse, this dopamine effect manifests itself in love, political choice, ambition, creativity, dominance. You wonder why you keep checking your cell phone all the time. There's always the possibility of something new on there because there was something good and new before. It's a dopamine effect that arises from survival. We write about this, Dr. Dan Lieberman is my co-author, but I'll leave all of those ideas, which are a little far from what we're talking about. I'll leave you to look those up in the book if you're interested. But on the positive side, this can also push early mastery. The power of early mastery flows from this good feeling of quick success. It feeds the desire for more. And in this case, that more is more education on the topic at hand. The mechanisms controlled in part by dopamine, the molecule of more, are the mechanisms of acquisition, anticipation, desire. And we can use them to create a desire for more learning, especially in a place where it requires concentration in the field of science. In this way, in a sneaky way, we transform the desire to learn from an intellectual choice that could go either way to an emotion-driven impulse, almost a reflex. In fact, a reflex by almost any measure of the definition. And a reflex is difficult to resist. Hence the power of early mastery. And this, my friends, my colleagues, is an opportunity of spectacular proportion, especially for anyone who is a teacher by trade. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening. Hope you'll check out the book, The Molecule of More by Lieberman and Long, and I hope you find a use for early mastery in the work that you do. Thank you.